Welcome to episode 23 of the Relationship Restaurant. We are Poppy and Jeff Spencer. Delighted you could be on here with us, joining us for this conversation. And we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. Today, we're talking about signs that you might be in a toxic relationship. Poppy, you had a conversation with one of your mentors.
Well, we reached out to one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. I've been following her for about 10 years. Gretchen Rubin, one of the most amazing, influential people of our time. She studies happiness, habits, and human nature, all the things that we also, being positive psychologists,
I know she's written
doing.
many books, and I think I've seen she's written the blockbuster New York Times bestseller, The Four Tendencies. I know we're going to be talking about that here for a moment. Better than Before, The Happiness Project. She sold 3 million books worldwide in more than 30 languages. And The Happiness Project, I understand, spent 2 years on the bestseller list.
I got that book for all of my kids, that Happiness Project. That was one of her first books. But we reached out to Gretchen recently, and one of the things that happened in many of our consulting sessions is we asked, why do people resist one of the positive connections that we offer them? And that was a 10-minute time to connect at the end of the day or the beginning of a day. Or
it was something that we were pointing out as when people are struggling to communicate, essentially. It's hard to have the time is to make a set time for this. And why would that be a problem?
So Gretchen walked us through the 4 tendencies. And of course, the 4 tendencies, and you can even go online and take a free quiz yourself if you want to know that, because many of the things that we use as resources, like the 4 tendencies or the Happier Than Before, the Happiness Project, the Myers-Briggs Instrument, the love languages, so many of these things all contribute to how we can have heart-healthy communication. And that's really what we're doing here on the podcast, the Relationship Restaurant, is to evoke heart-healthy communication.
Not to mention the emotional clock, something developed by people that we love.
The emotional clock was our communication tool that we developed in the writing of our book, our #1 bestseller, 1 billion seconds. But now back to Gretchen. So she answered, she said, I like this question. She kind of rubbed her hands together and she goes, I like this question. She said, let's use the 4 tendencies to answer why people would resist coming together every day to talk for 10 minutes and connect.
And let me explain what these 4 tendencies are, what they're called. The upholder. This person meets both the inner and outer expectations. Then there's the obliger, that meets outer expectations and resists inner expectations. There is the rebel, and resists both inner and outer expectations, just fights everything, huh? And the questioner, resists outer expectations, meets inner expectations, but I guess questions everything.
Right. Gretchen used this one, and for the most part, she discovered from her research and findings that many people are obligers, which both Jeff and I are obligers, so we have to go along with that. We like that outer commitment. We're really steadfast on that, but we allow ourselves wiggle room for our own personal goals and desires. We allow that to take a back seat occasionally, which is not necessarily good.
The point was that someone who's like a questioner, for example, would make it very hard. They wouldn't just accept the fact that it was a 10-minute time. They'd want to know every single reason why and how much. And
yes, and where's the research to support that 10 minutes will actually be effective? And I think it might be arbitrary. And why should I put down my devices? Is there a study that shows, does science show that putting down my devices will actually improve my communication?
And I guess a rebel would just say no for the sake of saying no all the time, right?
A rebel would say, this is too confining and too constrained. I need something because maybe out of the love for this person, I could possibly do it. An obliger would say, sure, you know what? This is important to you. I'm going to get the buy-in from this other person. This is what Gretchen shared with us. She says, and my future self will be disappointed if I don't allow this 10-minute meeting every day.
And a holder would be okay with it too, right?
And a holder is easy peasy. That's what Gretchen said. She said, we don't even need to talk about the upholder. It's a commitment. It's 10 minutes. I don't need to question it. The only one that was really difficult were the questioners and the rebels. And the questioner really needs something more customized. So that was really helpful for us. If we ever encounter someone that is very logically linear oriented, we need to give them a lot of background on why this would be an efficient use of time of 10 minutes for them. And then how long? Is this a 2-week thing? Is it a month? Is it forever? And give them some science and foundation to support that. So then it got us to thinking even further after we signed off with Gretchen. It got us to thinking further about, we came up with 21 signs that you might be in an unhealthy or toxic relationship.
Number one, and this is, I think, a very obvious one, when you're suffering from abuse of some sort. That's a clear and obvious thing, the physical especially. The emotional abuse is not necessarily as obvious because that's kind of a thing that chips away at you over a long period of time. You often don't even know it's happening until you realize that you've lost a whole portion of your identity and you're not sure of what you're doing in the relationship. So abuse is a clear and obvious first place.
And these aren't in any special order. And that really is much like our relationships. Things come and go. They make themselves apparent in the front part of a conversation, or maybe a month later they might show up. But one of the things that we've noticed that couples that we work with do is they might provoke their partner either consciously or unconsciously. They might want to stir things up and poke the bear,
right. If there's something wrong, they're not sure what they're doing or why, or if they want to be in the relationship, something within them might just say, hey, I'm not happy. Let's figure out what's going on here and then make something happen. It often is making something unpleasant happen to find a result.
And often, if we can't be objective, and it's so hard when you're close into it, if you can't zoom out, a lot of people put up defense mechanisms and create all sorts of challenges and barriers.
Number 3, we came up with, you can be just feeling resentment about things that are going on, that you're upset and you're frustrated by behaviors that you're seeing, and you resent them and you resent the person. That's a very bad sign.
And you don't even know. It starts so slowly, too, that resentment. It just ekes along. It's like a little caterpillar crawling along. It really takes some time, and all of a sudden you're in full-blown resentment, and you don't know
how you got there.
How did I get here? Right. Number 4, signs you might be in an unhealthy or toxic relationship. Sometimes we think, well, it's better than being alone.
Right. It's better than nothing. It's something I know I've personally experienced, that you stay in a relationship, not because it's necessarily the best thing, but you have a feeling of, well, if I wasn't in this relationship, I would be on my own. I wouldn't have that person to spend the weekend with or take to a party or whatever else. And even though it's not great, it's better than nothing. So that can be a very bad sign that things are toxic and going the wrong way.
And the thing about being alone, and we work with people to embrace that being alone. It's so wonderful to build yourself up, to reclaim that identity that might have been lost, and to embrace yourself, because that makes you so much more attractive to the other person, a future partner that might be out there.
Number 5, if you've ever found yourself with a wandering eye and or mind. A wandering eye sounds pretty obvious, that you might just be looking at, if you're a guy, you're checking out other women and they're more interesting to you and they're more attractive to you than the person you're with.
Or just anybody else. And it could be online, too. You could be just poking around on social media.
Right, and just starting, your mind wanders off to other people. The other thing that Poppy and I talked about was just your curiosity about the other relationships. Your mind starts to wander and go, is this person in that relationship, are they happy? Can you tell if they're happy or not? And you're just curious to understand what they're doing and why.
Okay, number 6 of a sign that you might be in an unhealthy or toxic relationship. You enjoy time being away, or you feel dread about going home, or you consciously or unconsciously seek some distraction. Certainly, we have so much distraction available at our fingertips.
It's easy to get. You can literally, as Poppy just said, at your fingertips, our devices. Cell phones. You can grab those things and keep yourself quite busy with looking elsewhere and not taking the time to talk. It's so easy to, and many other things life presents us. Number 7.
Physical symptoms increase.
Right. You get sick.
I know everybody, certainly in 2018, has gotten some sort of flu or virus or bug
been everywhere.
Or cold or whatever. But sometimes it either becomes repeated, or you get something unusual, or it's even something severe. People are hospitalized. they have something that they've never had before. So the mind-body connection is so strong. If you have unhealthy thoughts and you don't have peace in your mind and your heart, it eventually will translate to the body, and your body is trying to tell you, hey,
we need to change some things in your life because we're not working well here. The next one we had, number 8, is comparing yourself to other couples all the time. If you're always looking at other couples and looking at yourself in your relationship and saying, wow, are these folks happy? Are they like us? Are we like them? That kind of thought, it's a very distracting thing.
People say to their partner, why can't you be more like so-and-so? You know, it's a sibling thing. Why can't you be more like your brother? Why, But if you find yourself comparing, that might be a red flag that things are not healthy in your relationship.
Number 9, gunny sacks with no resolution. We often have talked about this concept of gunny sacking. When you're in an argument, when you're in a discussion and you decide to bring out this little gunny sack with all the other complaints and issues that you've had, and you dump them all in the middle of this conversation where you're only talking about one point, but you decide to bring up every other thing you're upset about, and you find out you never have resolution. There's no resolution in any of these conversations. Both parties want to win, and it's not a resolution that they're seeking.
And that goes to our next point, number 10. If you find that in a relationship that you or your partner has to win every discussion, every argument, whether or not your mother or mother-in-law is right or not, those are things that are really counterproductive to a heart-healthy relationship. We often ask individuals and couples, do you want to be right or do you want to feel good? And you can't have it both ways. We hope that people usually would answer, I want to feel good. Because when you feel right, sometimes it's not very satisfying. It's not very long-lasting.
So, wow, I won that, but you won the battle, but you lost the war, essentially, is what's taking place. The next thing, we recently had a holiday that is a big one. It applies to any holiday, but if you find yourself, it is a holiday, and you're at the card rack, and you're struggling to find the right thing, and your heart just isn't in it, you're struggling for even the right things to write on a card, and the whole thing just feels like a big obligation. That's a big sign that you're in a toxic relationship.
Or even getting a gift. If you get a perfunctory gift for someone and it doesn't have a lot of thought or sentiment behind it, that could be a signal that you're maybe not.
You're not all in. You're not all in. That's right.
You might get a Hallmark gushy card that says everything that you possibly can't say, and you sign it, love Jim or love Sarah. If you can't write your own words on there, maybe it's time to really
take a good hard look at it. 12, if you have a pit in your stomach, first of all, you might not even know why it's there. Secondly, you can't get rid of that pit in your stomach. That's a bad sign.
And then number 13, it's hard to imagine a future with this person. You can't think ahead. It's hard to wrap your head around it because so much of the challenges and obstacles that you're currently facing really block out. It's like a shadow over a possible future filled with
right, you're
really
just living moment to
things.
moment, and you're having a hard time imagining any kind of things. So you don't do like number 14, and you don't plan anything. You're reluctant to look at trips, or you have all kinds of excuses. It costs too much. It takes too much time. We'll never get a babysitter. You're trying to avoid time with the other person because you just know it's not going to be pleasurable.
You will consciously or unconsciously disagree on where to go. I want to go skiing. I want to go to the beach. I don't want to take the kids. I do want to take the kids. It's those kinds of things that you might want to take another look then.
15 is you enjoy social things as long as other people are with the two of you. So you, again, aren't looking to be spending quality time with your partner, but you're looking to be with other people for, once again, that feeling of distraction that is more enjoyable and engaging to be with others.
Number 16, a sign that you might be in an unhealthy or toxic relationship. Your partner or you makes disparaging comments to you either one-on-one or even when you're around other people. And we've seen this many times that happens. We make sarcasm and criticism. And even though someone says it sort of kidding on the square, they say it with a smile or a smirk. Deep down, it's a disrespectful kind of comment.
Right, we've seen this in even counseling sessions we've done where people are very overtly unpleasant to each other and say these things, and that's quite obvious that there's a lot of toxicity there.
And number 17, it sort of piggybacks on that. If sarcasm is the only form of humor, that's one of the defense mechanisms that we use. Humor is it's definitely a defense mechanism, but if sarcasm and caustic remarks and barbs are the only thing that you or your partner offer to one another, that's probably a pretty good sign that your relationship is headed in an unhealthy way.
The next one, 18, then this might be a fairly obvious one, but it's a very serious one, is you can't recall the last time that you shared any intimacy and had sex and lovemaking, and you actually stop even asking about, you don't even bring the topic up because you're afraid there's going to be too many things that are going to be in the way. There'll be all the reasons why you can't.
Rejection comes in there too,
right?
Right,
And you don't want to hear that again. So that's a very big sign that you're in trouble.
19, you look at yourself in photos, either old photos or current ones if you're newly with your partner on social media, and you don't see any sparkle in your eyes. Now, this isn't talking about like getting the red eye out of a photo. This is that vacant, your mouth is smiling, but the eyes are not in lockstep.
Or your mouth might not even be smiling. But
Right.
Poppy and I have done a lot of this, looking at old pictures of ourselves. At times we know it now in hindsight that we weren't fulfilled and happy. And we can see those pictures. We see our faces versus the joy we feel now in the very fulfilling, wonderful relationship that we are in.
And number 20, sort of piggybacking on that, is sometimes family and friends seem to like tiptoe around you almost. They're not really quite sure how to approach you because you become different, either distant or aggressive.
They can tell something's wrong, and there's almost this elephant in the room thing, and they're afraid to talk about it.
So they begin to talk to you superficially. They talk about things that you don't have deep, meaningful, rewarding conversations anymore. And maybe somebody who's even really bold, maybe your best friend or a sister or brother that can talk to you directly might say, "Is everything okay with you?"
If you haven't come to terms with it yourself that you need to deal with it, you're probably going to give a sloughing off kind of comment like, everything's fine. Yeah, it's just little disagreement. And if you're open and honest with yourself, then you'll probably start talking with your good friend and start to admit what's going on.
And then 21.
The last one, you look at your furry friends for comfort. So you find more love and affection with them than you do your partner. And you sometimes find your two black labs are sleeping between the two of you because either you or your partner want it that way. That's a real bad sign that it's better to have the dogs there than the other person.
And it's almost like they're like a barrier. They keep you apart. So we're always looking to keep people together, to fuse their connection and make that rewarding. So we hope you've really enjoyed this 21 signs.
And if any of these are hitting home and if you're concerned about the relationship and you realize might be the life you're leading, we would like to be there to help you.
Yes, and you can reach out to us at poppyandjeff.com. That's poppyandgeoff.com. And we have an online training program that we're having coming up in the next 2 months. And you can join a course. It's going to be awesome. And you can do that with the privacy of your home so that you can really get clarity and have heart-healthy communication in all of your relationships. You know, this goes for work relationships too. It doesn't have to be just your significant other. Mm-hmm. And it could also be family members, siblings, friends that you have disagreements with. So to really help you focus and net out what those challenges and barriers are, we can help you remove them.
So until next time, again, we are Poppy and Jeff Spencer. This is the Relationship Restaurant. We appreciate your being with us today.
Have a great week.